The IRS has officially launched a formal investigation into Meghan Markle's Archwell Foundation, and the timing could not be more devastating. Just when the Duchess thought 2025 would mark her glorious comeback, federal investigators started asking questions she cannot answer. This is not speculation. This is not rumor. Over 40 people filed complaints, sent physical letters, and made phone calls demanding answers about where the money went. And now, the government is listening. Meghan started this year with what can only be described as delusional optimism. Those viral clips of her giggling and running toward the ocean, carefree and confident, suggested she believed her redemption arc was finally beginning. She had plans, big plans, Netflix content, lifestyle branding, maybe even a return to acting. 2025 was supposed to be the year the world finally saw her brilliance. Well, that fantasy has officially crumbled. Instead of magazine covers celebrating her entrepreneurial genius, Meghan now faces the cold reality of government scrutiny. The IRS does not play games. When a public charity fails to file proper documentation for 3 consecutive years, they do not send polite reminders, they launch investigations, they impose fines, they revoke tax-exempt status, and if the allegations prove true, the consequences extend far beyond embarrassment. The complaints began trickling in years ago, but they reached critical mass this past summer. Concerned citizens, many of them ordinary people who simply wanted transparency, started calling the IRS directly. They requested the tax filings that Archwell is legally obligated to provide. Public charities cannot hide behind closed doors. The law demands accountability, yet every single request was ignored. No emails, no letters, no acknowledgement whatsoever. 44 people formally documented their attempts to obtain these records. 44 people were stonewalled by an organization that claims to champion compassion and community. The hypocrisy is staggering. Meghan lectures the world about kindness and service while her own foundation refuses to answer basic questions about its finances. Then came December 12th. That was the date the IRS finally responded. The message confirmed what many suspected. A formal investigation into Archwell Incorporated was now underway. The government had taken the complaints seriously. The wheels of accountability had begun turning. But here is where the story takes a darker turn. Exactly 6 days after that confirmation, Meghan made a sudden announcement. She was rebranding. Archwell would become Archwell Philanthropies. The media celebrated this as a fresh start, a new chapter. Nobody bothered asking the obvious question, why now? Why would someone rebrand a charity days after learning investigators were examining their books? The answer seems painfully clear. Meghan believed she could simply walk away from the mess, open a new entity, pretend the old problems belonged to a different organization entirely, start fresh with a clean slate while millions in questionable expenses remained unexplained. But the IRS does not forget. They do not allow convenient rebrands to erase years of non-compliance, and Meghan is about to learn that lesson the hard way. Here is the brutal truth that Meghan Markle desperately hopes nobody notices. The last time Archwell Incorporated filed tax documents that the IRS actually approved was 2022. That means for years now, this supposedly charitable organization has been operating in a gray zone of non-compliance. And the deeper you dig, the worse it gets. Public charities exist under a completely different set of rules than private foundations. When you register as a public charity, you surrender your right to financial secrecy. Every tax filing must be made available to the public upon request. This is not optional. This is federal law. If someone writes to Archwell and asks for their tax returns, Archwell is legally obligated to provide them. No exceptions, no excuses. So what happened when 44 people made exactly that request? Absolute silence. Not a single person received a response. Not an email, not a letter, not even an automated acknowledgement. The organization that preaches transparency and compassion simply pretended these requests did not exist. Think about that for a moment. Ordinary citizens, exercising their legal right to review a public charity's finances, were completely ignored by an organization run by a woman who constantly lectures others about integrity. The arrogance is breathtaking. The hypocrisy is nauseating. But the IRS situation is only part of this unfolding disaster. Archwell is also delinquent with the California Department of Justice. Every charity operating in California must file annual registration renewals and pay associated fees. The deadline for the 2024 filing was May 15th. That deadline came and went. Archwell never submitted the required documents. They never paid the fees. They never even applied for an extension. When you check the California Department of Justice website, Archwell's status tells the whole story. Delinquent, not pending, not under review. Delinquent. This means they are technically operating outside the boundaries of state law. A charity that cannot be bothered to complete basic paperwork is somehow supposed to be trusted with donor money. The pattern here is impossible to ignore. Year after year, deadline after deadline, Archwell has demonstrated a stunning disregard for the rules everyone else must follow. They seem to believe that their celebrity status grants immunity from accountability. They appear convinced that nobody would dare question a duchess. They were wrong. Those 44 complainants refused to accept silence as an answer. They escalated, they called, they wrote physical letters, they documented everything, and eventually the IRS had no choice but to act. When dozens of people independently report the same compliance failures, investigators take notice. Now Meghan finds herself in a position she clearly never anticipated. The Shield of Fame offers no protection against federal inquiry. The carefully crafted image of charitable virtue has cracked under the weight of missing paperwork and unanswered questions. And somewhere in that Montecito mansion, the Duchess must be realizing that ignoring problems does not make them disappear. It only makes the eventual reckoning that much more painful. 6 days. That is all it took. 6 days after learning the IRS had launched a formal investigation, Meghan Markle suddenly announced that Archwell was being rebranded to Archwell Philanthropies. The mainstream media lapped it up like obedient lapdogs. Headlines celebrated her fresh vision. Outlets praised her decision to honor her children by incorporating their names more prominently. Nobody thought to ask the obvious question: why the sudden urgency? The truth is far more damning than any press release would suggest. Meghan did not rebrand Archwell. She did not rename it. She did not file paperwork to amend the existing organization. Instead, she opened an entirely new charity, a completely separate legal entity. And buried in the fine print of that new filing is a detail the media conveniently overlooked. This new organization is registered for commercial use. Let that sink in. A charity. Registered for commercial purposes. The very foundation of charitable status requires that funds be used for public benefit, not private gain. Yet here is Meghan creating a new entity that explicitly allows for commercial activity. The audacity is almost impressive if it were not so transparently cynical. This is the classic playbook of someone trying to outrun accountability. When the heat gets too intense on one venture, you abandon ship and launch something new. You hope the investigators get confused. You pray the public loses interest. You bet everything on the assumption that nobody will connect the dots between the failing organization and its shiny replacement. But the IRS does not suffer from short attention spans. An investigation into Archwell Incorporated does not simply vanish because Meghan decided to start Archwell Philanthropies. The missing tax filings still need answers. The years of non-compliance still demand explanation. The millions in reported expenses with virtually nothing to show for them still require justification. What makes this even more insulting is how Meghan attempted to frame the rebrand. She dragged her children into it. According to her carefully crafted narrative, the name change was about including Archie and Lilibet more prominently in the foundation's mission. How heartwarming, how convenient, how utterly transparent. This is a tactic she has employed time and again. Whenever scrutiny intensifies, the children appear. Whenever questions become uncomfortable, suddenly it is all about family. The strategy relies on a simple calculation. If she wraps her actions in the protective cloak of motherhood, critics will hesitate. Who wants to be accused of attacking children? But nobody is attacking Archie and Lilibet. People are questioning why their mother cannot file basic tax documents. People are asking why a public charity refuses to provide legally required records. People are demanding to know where donor money actually went. These are legitimate questions that have nothing to do with two innocent kids who never asked to be born into this circus. Meghan gambled that a splashy rebrand would distract from her mounting problems. She lost that bet spectacularly. There is something deeply unsettling about the way Meghan Markle deploys her children whenever she needs protection from criticism. It has become a predictable pattern. The moment accountability comes knocking, Archie and Lilibet suddenly appear in carefully staged photographs or get mentioned in strategic press releases. This rebrand situation is no different. According to Meghan's official explanation, the transition from Archwell to Archwell Philanthropies represents a beautiful evolution. The foundation now honors both children more prominently. It celebrates family. It demonstrates her commitment to building a legacy for the next generation. The messaging is polished. The sentiment sounds lovely, and absolutely none of it explains why she failed to file taxes for years. Compare this to how the actual royal family integrates children into their public duties. Princess Charlotte recently sat beside her mother, Catherine, at the Together at Christmas Carol service. The young princess played piano alongside the Princess of Wales in a moment that captivated millions worldwide. It was genuine, it was organic, it was a natural progression of a child being gently introduced to the responsibilities that await her. Prince George has accompanied Prince William to visit homeless shelters. These are real moments of service, teaching royal children that privilege comes with obligation. Nobody questions the authenticity because the authenticity is self-evident. These children are learning to serve, not being positioned as marketing props. Now contrast that with how Meghan presents her children. We see the backs of their heads. We glimpse them in carefully controlled snippets designed to generate maximum publicity with minimum actual exposure. When Lilibet appeared in promotional content, observers noticed something troubling. The child's hair was uncombed. She appeared to be wearing pajamas. She was not even wearing shoes. If you are going to use your daughter to promote your brand, would you not at least ensure she looks presentable? The disconnect is jarring. It suggests these children are afterthoughts in Meghan's grand promotional schemes. Useful when needed, neglected when the cameras stop rolling. Sources close to the situation have revealed something even more disturbing. Meghan has reportedly told staff that the children will be her ace in the hole. A full reveal is coming, she promises, and it will generate enormous money. She is allegedly keeping their full appearances hidden specifically to maximize the eventual payday when she finally unveils them to the world. Harry never wanted this. Multiple reports confirm he has always been adamant about protecting his children from exploitation. He watched his own mother become consumed by media attention. He experienced firsthand how that attention can destroy lives. The last thing he wanted was for his own children to become commodities. Yet here is his wife, apparently planning their monetization down to the last detail, treating them not as human beings to be nurtured, but as assets to be leveraged, saving their faces for the highest bidder. The contrast between Montecito and Kensington could not be more stark or more heartbreaking. This is the question that haunts every aspect of the Archwell scandal. Where exactly did all the money go? Because when you examine the numbers, nothing adds up. The expenses reported are staggering. The charitable output is virtually non-existent, and somewhere in between lies a financial black hole that the IRS is now determined to illuminate. Archwell has reported enormous operational costs year after year. We are talking about figures that would make sense for an organization with sprawling offices, dozens of employees, and massive charitable programs. But here is the problem. Archwell has no permanent office. They have been making staff redundant. Their actual charitable donations represent a tiny fraction of what they have taken in. So where is the money going? Sources with knowledge of the situation paint a troubling picture. Staff members are reportedly owed wages. People who worked for this supposedly philanthropic organization claim they have not been paid what they are owed. How does a charity that preaches compassion and service fail to pay its own employees? The hypocrisy is suffocating. The expense reports read like fiction. Consulting fees, travel costs, administrative overhead, line after line of expenditures that seem designed to drain the coffers while producing nothing tangible for the communities Archwell claims to serve. When you strip away the glossy press releases and celebrity photo opportunities, what remains is an organization that appears far better at spending money than giving it away. This is precisely why the IRS investigation matters so much. Public charities operate under strict guidelines about how funds can be used. There are legal limits on administrative expenses. There are requirements about how much must actually go toward charitable purposes. When an organization consistently fails to meet these thresholds, investigators start asking uncomfortable questions. Remember Al Capone. The infamous gangster evaded justice for years. Murder, extortion, bootlegging, nothing could touch him. But what finally brought him down? Tax evasion. The federal government could not prove his violent crimes, but they could absolutely prove he lied about his money. He died in prison because he thought he was smarter than the IRS. Meghan Markle is no gangster, but the lesson remains relevant. You can spin narratives, you can manipulate media coverage, you can surround yourself with lawyers and publicists who craft the perfect image. None of that matters when federal investigators start examining your financial records. The numbers either add up or they do not. Right now, Archwell's numbers appear to tell a damning story. Millions in expenses, minimal charitable impact, staff going unpaid, tax filings missing or rejected, a sudden panic rebrand designed to create distance from the mounting problems. The walls are closing in, and no amount of celebrity privilege can stop what comes next. The IRS has seen every trick in the book. They have dismantled operations far more sophisticated than whatever Archwell has constructed, and they are patient, methodical, relentless. Meghan may have underestimated exactly who she was dealing with. While Meghan Markle scrambled to contain the fallout from her charity scandal, the real royal family delivered a Christmas moment that captured hearts around the entire world. Catherine, Princess of Wales, sat beside her daughter Princess Charlotte at the Together at Christmas Carol service. Together, mother and daughter played piano in a duet that left viewers breathless. The internet absolutely exploded with praise. This was not a manufactured publicity stunt. This was not a carefully calculated brand exercise. This was a mother sharing a genuine moment with her child, inviting the world to witness something beautiful and authentic. Charlotte's poise at such a young age, Catherine's grace and warmth, the obvious bond between them. Every element combined to create television magic that no Hollywood producer could ever replicate. The contrast with Meghan's approach to public life could not have been more devastating. Here was Catherine, fresh from her own health battles, choosing to spend her energy on service and connection. Here was Charlotte, being gently introduced to public duty in a way that felt natural rather than exploitative. Here was the royal family demonstrating exactly why the institution endures while pretenders fade into irrelevance. King Charles followed with his annual Christmas message, and once again the theme resonated deeply. He spoke of community, he spoke of caring for one another, he spoke of gratitude and togetherness. The message aligned perfectly with Catherine's own emphasis on compassion and connection. Father and daughter-in-law were singing from the same hymn sheet, quite literally in Catherine's case. For Harry, watching from his Montecito mansion, the broadcast must have felt like a knife to the heart. This was his family. These were the traditions he abandoned. This was the legacy he threw away for a woman who cannot even file her taxes properly. Every frame of Catherine at that piano reminded him of everything he sacrificed. Every word from his father underscored the community he chose to reject. The Sussexes have tried desperately to position Archwell as their version of royal service. They want the world to believe they are doing meaningful charitable work outside the constraints of palace protocol. But what have they actually accomplished? Where are their carol services? Where are their moments of genuine connection with the public? Where is the tangible evidence that their foundation serves anyone besides themselves? The answer is painfully obvious. It does not exist. While Catherine teaches her daughter to serve, Meghan allegedly plans to monetize hers. While William takes George to homeless shelters, Harry makes secret speeches in Toronto ballrooms with cameras banned. The divergence in values has become impossible to ignore. Christmas 2024 will be remembered as the moment the comparison became undeniable. Catherine, glowing despite everything she has endured, sharing music with her daughter. Meghan, hiding in California, desperately rebranding a failing charity while investigators circle. One woman embodying duty and grace, the other embodying desperation and delusion. The public sees the difference, and they have made their choice abundantly clear. If there is one thing Meghan Markle cannot tolerate, it is being ignored. Every time the royal family enjoys a moment in the spotlight, she finds a way to insert herself into the conversation. The pattern has become so predictable that royal watchers can practically set their clocks by it. Catherine announces something significant. Within hours, Meghan drops a competing headline. The timing is never coincidental. During Catherine's Together at Christmas broadcast, while millions worldwide were captivated by that stunning piano duet, Meghan chose that exact moment to post updates about her rebranded charity. She could have waited a day. She could have shown the most basic courtesy and let Catherine have her moment. Instead, she attempted to hijack the attention with her own announcement. This is not speculation. Staff members with direct knowledge have confirmed that Harry himself has confronted Meghan about this destructive pattern. He reportedly found the courage to tell her that constantly competing with his family makes them both look petty and desperate. He understands how terrible the optics are. He recognizes the damage it causes, but Meghan has her own twisted logic. According to sources, she genuinely believes that when people are paying attention to the royal family, some of that attention will naturally spill over to her. In her mind, royal coverage creates a rising tide that lifts all boats, including her sinking vessel. She thinks she can ride their coattails to relevance. The delusion is staggering. Meghan is not part of the royal family anymore. She made absolutely certain of that when she dragged them through the mud in interview after interview. She burned those bridges with napalm and then complained about the smoke, yet she still believes she deserves a share of their spotlight. This pattern extends far beyond Christmas. When Catherine delivered a significant speech earlier this year, Meghan suddenly announced her return to acting. When William hosted the Earthshot Prize ceremony, celebrating genuine environmental innovation, Meghan found a way to generate competing coverage. Every single time the real royals do something meaningful, she scrambles for attention like a child throwing a tantrum at someone else's birthday party. The desperation radiates from every calculated move. Her social media team, which insiders confirm is essentially just Meghan and a couple of assistants, monitors royal coverage obsessively. The moment something positive trends about William or Catherine, the counter-programming begins. New posts appear, announcements get pushed. Anything to claw back a fragment of the attention she craves. But here is what Meghan fails to understand. The public sees through it. Every transparent attempt to overshadow Catherine only makes Meghan look smaller. Every desperate bid for relevance only highlights how irrelevant she has become. People are not stupid. They recognize jealousy when they see it. They understand pettiness when it parades across their screens. The timing game has been exposed, and Meghan is losing badly. There was a time when Meghan Markle believed Hollywood would embrace her with open arms. She had escaped the stuffy confines of royal life. She had her Netflix deal. She had her Spotify contract. She had the Sussex brand, which she assumed would open every door in the entertainment industry. She was convinced the A-list was waiting to welcome her home. That fantasy has collapsed completely. Not a single major celebrity wants to be associated with the Sussexes anymore. The invitations have dried up. The collaborations never materialized. When Meghan throws events, the guest lists are embarrassingly thin. No Beyoncé, no Mariah Carey, no power players from the industry she desperately wants to conquer. The stars who once posed for photographs with her have quietly distanced themselves from the toxic brand she has built. This is not personal animosity. This is cold business calculation. Celebrity associations are strategic. Stars align themselves with people and causes that enhance their own image. Meghan Markle has become brand poison. Associating with her now carries more risk than reward. the smart money has moved on. The Netflix situation perfectly illustrates her diminishing value. The holiday content she produced was supposed to generate excitement. It was meant to drive subscriptions and prove that the Sussex partnership still had commercial potential. Instead, it landed with a deafening thud. According to sources within Netflix, executives hoped for at least a modest spike in viewership. They got nothing. No buzz, no traction, no return on their investment. Her jam venture faces similar problems: the manufacturing costs, the distribution challenges, the fundamental question of profitability. None of it makes sense. Who is actually buying this product? The numbers suggest almost nobody. At some point, production will have to cease because businesses cannot survive on vanity alone. Unless, of course, Harry keeps funding the operation with whatever remains of his inheritance. Speaking of Harry, his own career trajectory has become genuinely sad to witness. The prince who once commanded global attention now makes speeches in Toronto ballrooms for property developers. Cameras are banned, questions are prohibited. He shows up, collects a fee, and disappears. This is what his life has become. A performing monkey for wealthy businessmen who want to tell their friends they once hired a prince. The couple who promised to revolutionize philanthropy and entertainment has delivered nothing but failure. Their production company produces content nobody watches. Their foundation faces federal investigation. Their brand repels the very celebrities they need to remain relevant. Every venture they touch seems to wither and die. Hollywood operates on a simple principle: you are only as valuable as your last success. Meghan has not had a genuine success since she left Suits. Every project since then has underperformed or outright failed. The industry has noticed. The doors that once seemed ready to open have quietly locked, and the Duchess of Sussex is left standing outside, wondering why nobody answers when she knocks. What Meghan Markle has planned for her daughter might be the most disturbing revelation yet. Sources close to the Sussex household have exposed a calculated strategy that treats Lilibet not as a child to be protected, but as an asset to be exploited. And at the center of this scheme is a deliberate attempt to manufacture a connection to the late Princess Diana. According to staff members who have spoken candidly about what happens behind closed doors, Meghan has been telling people that Lilibet possesses Diana's mannerisms. She reportedly claims her daughter has the same striking blue eyes. She allegedly describes the child as having an almost supernatural connection to Harry's mother, as if Diana's spirit somehow lives within her granddaughter. The manipulation is breathtaking in its audacity. Remember, this is the same woman who claimed she barely knew who Harry was before they met. She supposedly had to Google him. She allegedly knew nothing about the royal family. Yet now she claims intimate knowledge of Diana's specific mannerisms and can identify them in her own daughter. Which story are we supposed to believe? Either Meghan was obsessed with Diana long before meeting Harry, which exposes her previous claims as lies, or she is fabricating this connection now for financial purposes, which exposes her as something far worse. There is no version of this story where Meghan comes out looking honest. But the most chilling detail involves what sources describe as Meghan's master plan. She has allegedly referred to her children as her ace in the hole. A full reveal is coming, she reportedly tells staff, and when that reveal happens, it will generate enormous money. She is deliberately keeping their faces hidden from the public to maximize the eventual payday. Think about what this means. Every carefully controlled photograph, every glimpse of the back of their heads, every mysterious snippet designed to build curiosity, none of it is about protecting the children. It is about inflating their market value for a future unveiling that will be sold to the highest bidder. Harry has always been adamant about protecting his children from exploitation. He watched media attention destroy his mother. He has spoken repeatedly about wanting a different life for his own kids. Yet his wife appears to be planning the exact opposite. She is treating Archie and Lilibet as future revenue streams rather than human beings deserving of privacy and normal childhoods. Even the choice of Lilibet Diana as a name takes on sinister undertones in this context. Why not name the child after Doria, Meghan's own mother? If authenticity and family honor were truly the motivation, surely her own parent deserved recognition. But Doria does not have Diana's global recognition. Doria cannot be monetized the way Diana's legacy can. The naming was strategic from the very beginning. It was always about creating a marketable connection. It was always about the money, and those two innocent children will ultimately pay the price for their mother's ambition. 2025 was supposed to be Meghan Markle's triumphant comeback. She had survived the early criticism, she had weathered the Spotify disaster, she had convinced herself that the world was finally ready to embrace her vision. Instead, she now faces the most serious threat of her post-royal career. The IRS does not care about celebrity. Federal investigators do not respond to carefully crafted press releases, and the walls are closing in faster than she ever anticipated. The investigation into Archwell remains active and ongoing. Every missing tax filing, every ignored request for documentation, every questionable expense, All of it now sits under the microscope of people whose entire job is finding financial irregularities. Meghan can rebrand all she wants. She can open 10 new charities with 10 different names. None of it erases the paper trail she left behind. What makes this situation even more precarious is the growing chorus of voices demanding accountability. Those 44 original complainants were just the beginning. More people are being encouraged to contact the IRS with their own concerns. More documentation is being compiled. More pressure is building on an organization that clearly believed it was untouchable. And then there is Harry's own precarious situation. Here is a man who publicly admitted to drug use in his own memoir. He wrote about cocaine. He wrote about marijuana. He wrote about psychedelics. As someone holding a visa in the United States, he is bound by federal law regardless of what individual states permit. Drug use is grounds for visa revocation. Yet somehow, inexplicably, he remains protected. The question of why the American government continues shielding the Sussexes deserves serious examination. Normal people would have faced consequences long ago. Normal visa holders who admitted to illegal drug use would find themselves on planes back to their home countries. But Harry and Meghan exist in a bubble of privilege that apparently extends even to federal immigration enforcement. That bubble is showing cracks. The IRS investigation represents the first real institutional challenge to their carefully constructed American life. If investigators determine that Archwell engaged in financial improprieties, the consequences extend far beyond fines and penalties. Reputation damage, legal exposure, potential criminal referrals. The domino effect could be catastrophic. Meghan gambled everything on her ability to manipulate perception. She believed that fame and sympathetic media coverage would protect her from accountability indefinitely. She thought she could ignore rules that apply to everyone else. She assumed her celebrity status made her untouchable. She was wrong. The same arrogance that drove her to ignore 44 documentation requests, the same hubris that led her to miss California filing deadlines, the same entitlement that made her believe a quick rebrand could erase years of non-compliance, all of it has finally caught up with her. 2025 will not be remembered as Meghan's comeback year. It will be remembered as the year the truth finally caught up with the Duchess of Montecito. Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you will not believe what is coming next.